Well, good morning. I'm Pete Najarian. This is the take for Market Rebellion on this hump day. And wow, have we seen some crazy markets over the last couple of sessions? I mean, unbelievable. You go back to last week, we had the down 1800 day. We've had a little bit of everything. And the volumes have been there each and every day. Absolutely amazing. But let's start off with yesterday. So yesterday in the pre-market, we had a market that was really scorching and ripping to the upside. Really, really impressive. Moving up about 700 points or so. Well, as we started the day, continued to hold on to a lot of the gains, actually build on them a little bit, and then we started to see that sell-off. We sold all the way back off, unbelievably, only just to recover by the end of the day. An unbelievable movement day. If you go opening to close, not as much. But if you look at the opening and then see what the lowest levels of the day were and then finish off that day, it was a pretty crazy day. That's why you understand volatility. When we talk about volatility sometimes and you say, well, the market didn't move all that much from close to close, it really wasn't that big of a difference. It may have been in between, and that's part of this whole thing as well. So where did we finish with the volatility index yesterday? Well, we were in a range from about 32 to 37, closed right around 34. I had to take a quick look because it was still moving. It seemed like it was just moving. But yeah, closed around 34, and makes a lot of sense. We've had a lot of big moves. We've had a lot of intraday moves that have been absolutely incredible. So I think this volatility is completely accurate right now. As a matter of fact, maybe a slight bit on the downside, quite honestly. But when you have a market that finishes up over 2% on the Dow, nearly 2% on the NASDAQ, the S&P up about 1.9%, so call it 2% as well. That's a pretty impressive day. That's a big day across all the major indices, and really, the powering forces behind it was extremely broad. That's what you're looking for. You'd like to see not just the Power Five, but you want to see that broad participation. Well, we had that yesterday. The industrials, you look at the XLI up about 2%. You had names like, it was Boeing and Cat yesterday. It seems like similar names each and every day, but there is a little bit of movement within even each one of these individual sectors. So retail, this is one we hadn't talked about in a while, but you look over at retail and suddenly you look at the XRT up about 3% on the day. And what's powering that? Well, Nordstrom's, Kohl's, Gap stores, Ross, all of which were participating very, very nicely yesterday. You had the builders. We talked about Lennar and some of the earnings report, but some of the other names that were really moving on that, it was Horton, it was Hovnanian, names that we don't talk about each and every day, but certainly a nice movement in that world as well. Healthcare. We haven't talked about that as much. And yesterday we brought up the Lilly and the fact that they had that news and the big movement out of Lilly. But Lilly's really been pretty impressive. And then across the way, you look over at biotech as well. So there's been participation in different parts. And there are days even within that, the healthcare world, where it's maybe big pharma that's moving to the upside or the downside. And then it might be the opposite on the biotech side. So a lot of different participants, and that's really been a key factor for a lot of these rally days, has been the broad participation that we've been seeing. Energy, financials, you got Exxon, you got Chevron, Citi, Bank of America, PayPal, Square, a lot of those fintech type names really have been exploding and moving fast and very extremely rapidly to the upside. So where do we stand on these volumes? I talk about these volumes each and every day, and I got to bring this up to you again. So in June, we've had 2 days total. Now we're getting a little bit deeper into June now. 2 days total that we were under 24 million per day. Close to 24 million, but under 24 million per day. Those would, in normal circumstances, be monster days. But given the fact that we've had 3 days where we were over 43 million, yesterday we were at 31.2 million. Near the 3.5 million we've been averaging every single day for June. So gives you a little bit of an idea. So 31 million yesterday, that actually felt pretty light, given the fact that we've been averaging closer to about 34.5 million in terms of the daily average so far in the month of June. These volumes just continue to be extraordinary and very, very impressive. It's why we talk about this all the time. Have the knowledge, understand the derivatives markets. It can be something where you can actually reduce risk. You just have to really have a much better education and understanding about how all that works. We got some great guys here at Market Rebellion. You always have to keep an eye on that. That's something that if you're not familiar with it, you really should be more familiar with it. I've been saying this since I started on Fast Money back in January of 2007. This is the area of growth, and it continues to be the area of growth. So what are we looking at today? Well, we had a pre-market that looked pretty good. things were flying around. We were up a couple hundred points and we kind of gave back a little bit. And first 30 minutes or so, we gave back whatever gains we had early on, call it a triple digit start, and then pushing back all the way into, the flat area. And now, as I'm looking across and checking out on my phone real quick, looks like we're down about 108 points. So a little bit of movement continues. We've had volatility that's been hanging in there now, a little bit higher than it was where we closed out at 34. Here we are at about 35 right now. Makes a lot of sense. The market has had some movement early, and we'll see if that continues. But a lot of different leadership roles in the market again. And we had Lowe's and Home Depot out of the gate. Those were really participating very nicely. A little bit of pressure on a lot of those names that were leading yesterday when we talk about some of the industrials and you look over at the financials and energy, a little bit of pressure there. That's been bringing things down a little bit. Something where you're seeing a little bit of positive, healthcare, some of the biotechs. You look over at the XBI and the IBB and some of those indexes, you can see, depending on which one you want to look at, but the biotech world has been a lot more of a participant than a lot of people bring up on enough of a basis, I would say. What other things that have really been starting to show up a little bit today, early, and likely going to be giving back a little bit if we hold on to this triple digit loss now and continue. But early on, what stood out for me was you got Apple, Netflix, Amazon, Tesla, all in positive, even when the markets were going into the negative side of things today. So that really stands out because there are still some pockets of technology, but also really take a look at these semiconductors. And I bring this up all the time, but the interesting thing here is it's not the same names every single day. And that's what makes this interesting and why I think it's sort of important that we have to focus on this. Yes, AMD is a name that we bring up a lot, but ASML, do we bring that up very often on TV or anywhere else? Absolutely not. NXPI, Skyworks. Now, a lot of these names are part of the Apple ecosystem, so that might be a part playing in this as well. But nonetheless, you look over at the SMH in positive territory. That was up about 1% the last I looked early on. Now things are shifting around very rapidly. But the other side of things that was stood out for me early here has been the Chinese names. And when I say that, I look at a lot of these various names and they just spiked, it seemed like. Not right out of the opening of the bell, but not too many minutes into the day started to have a nice little spike to the upside. Now, they could adjust very quickly, but I look at Bilibili, I look at Momo, I look at JD, I look at Alibaba. All these names had a nice little move to the upside early. The NASDAQ actually was absolutely trading better than the rest of the markets today out of the gates. So that was something that did stand out early. It's given back a lot of those gains as well. So we're down right now about 90 points. I look over at the NASDAQ, it's almost flat. It's up 17 points, but very, very close to the flat line. So here's the time where I always got to give you an unusual option activity. And originally I was looking and I thought, wow, some of these Chinese names, they really do stand out. They are pretty interesting. And we've had some of that paper. Bilibili hit on Monday. Today it was Momo, but a few other things hitting as well. Still had to come back to Chewy. Now, if you're not familiar with Chewy, you're looking at pet foods and toys and medications and all that kind of thing, all in the online world, e-commerce world. So this one it's not too terribly far off the highs, which is low 50s, and stock was trading about 48.5. They bought 8,400 of the June 51 calls, paying between, call it 50 cents and 80 cents. So this is very short term. So they expire on Friday. So the curious part is going to be, on this expiration, will this stock be able to make that kind of a move to be able to push to the upside? We certainly have the size there. That's going to be interesting to see. I'm still looking at it. I'm not in the trade just yet, but I'm taking a look at it right now. Folks, have a great day of trading. This is the Market Rebellion. It's hump day. Enjoy your trading day.